have some remembrances of Rodney from his mother and his wife, and then the sons are going to speak to you. His mom recalls some things from his early life, and if you know Rodney, he would want a little laughter today from his mother. Rodney idolized his father and imitated him in many ways. One was in working with a measure, a saw, nails, and any piece of wood. For Christmas, he was given a large box of various kinds of nails, his own personal saw and hammer. This wasn't when he was 18, this was when he was 5. Okay? Mainly because he was always getting into Dad's toolbox and leaving them out where they could not be found when needed. One afternoon, I heard Rodney sawing and hammering in the backyard. He came into the house and announced that if I just had a switch, I could make this thing work. I asked myself, Lord, what is this child doing? He invited me outside, and I saw he had wired some old spark plugs all around the doghouse. Not realizing that you should not ask a child, what is it, when it comes to art, but I could not resist, so I asked him. He replied, it's an electric doghouse. Back in the early 60s, we lived in a very old farmhouse and no television, so our children had to make their own entertainment. Sounds kind of nice, doesn't it? Really did teach them a lot about figuring out how things work and instill the work ethic that followed them. Now, when Rodney was about 3 years old, he wanted to paint. We had a long wood chicken house, so I gave him some whitewash and a brush and told him to paint it. To a 3-year-old, you did that? After about an hour, I went out and he had made a few swipes on the chicken house, but had painted the dog, had painted his little riding tractor, painted his boots, and everything got a water bath and all was just okay. Sister Karen went to first grade at a private school called Wilshire Presbyterian School. Remember that name, Wilshire Presbyterian School. Rodney, being 3, wanted to go to school. We told him that before he could go to school, he had to learn to tie his shoes. So I took Karen to school, and Rodney was in the back seat trying to tie his laces, and he said, when I get these shoes tied, I'm going to go to the washateria. His wife, Loretta, would like to give you a little peer into her thoughts on her husband. My husband was the best of the best. He completed me in every way. Rodney and I first met in Vacation Bible School when we were 9 and 10, and boy, did I have a crush on him. But it wasn't until later, when we were 16 and 17, that we began dating. Rodney was my knight in shining armor. He was so strong and yet so gentle. He was sure in himself and what he believed, and yet very gracious about accepting others who didn't necessarily share in his beliefs. Losing Rodney has left a gigantic hole, not only in my life, but for our 2 sons, daughter-in-law and grandson. For me, it's almost impossible to imagine a today without him, much less a tomorrow without him. These past couple of days, I've said to myself, he's so young, it's too soon. But honestly, if we were 30 years older, it would still be too soon. On November 5th, 1977, I married my best friend. We've laughed, we've loved, we've cried, we've agonized, we've dreamed together. And I consider myself one of the most blessed and fortunate of wives. I marvel often at the wisdom that God gave me in picking Rodney as my life and soul mate, especially since I was just 20 years old. There's no way at that young of an age any of us can foresee how important the decision of who we marry will be down the road, because there's no way to have a clue of what life will bring. But God knew. Rodney would be the first to tell you that we had our share of problems along the way, but thank the Lord both of us didn't run. With God's strength and guidance, we just worked harder. Every day and every year being married to Rodney just got sweeter and sweeter. I would oftentimes wonder, how could I be married for 30 years and be so in love with my husband still? But I was, and I still am. Rodney truly fulfilled the scripture, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. which is why it wasn't hard for me to submit to him in return. I gladly did so because I knew Rodney loved me so much. He'd never make a decision that wouldn't be in our best interests. He made it easy to love and honor him. We had an awesome life together, and although to me it was too short, I count myself fortunate to have walked the last 30+ years with my best friend, my lover, and my companion. And Rodney, sweetheart, I just know that Jesus said to you, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Husband, father, and son, you ran the race and you finished well. And as I see you sitting with Jesus, and your dad, and my mom, on the porch of your mansion, a log cabin, there's the biggest, most beautiful snow-capped mountain behind for you to enjoy for all eternity.